Okay, so in this particular unit, 4.13 will specifically, most of these would be demonstration videos. So I'm going to show you the charts that we discussed in 4.12, how to make those charts. Okay, thank you. Okay, so these are the things that we'll talk about in the next slide. I'll give you just an introduction about what specific Excel file you need to have downloaded to follow along my demonstrations. We'll talk about each of these charts, and these are the same ones that we discussed in the last unit. And actually, the application practice exercise thing, I made this one a part of your final for sorry data assignment. So yeah, I just put it here. Thank you. Okay, so in this unit, primarily we'll use Excel, right? So make sure you download this particular uh, data file, charting the first one, not two, but the first one, and we'll use Excel uh, and see how it goes. And in the next unit, and again, I want to make this unit not for assignment, but this next Tableau unit would specifically created to help you with your project. Okay, and I'll help you um, at each of the steps. So yep. So let's get started. Okay, so in the next slide, we'll have a short and sweet demonstration video about creating pie chart in Excel. Okay, in this short videos, we'll talk about creating charts, and the first set of charts would be based on this particular data. This particular data is specific to one categorical variable, which is the type of degree, associate degree. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so the associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's, and doctorate, and there's a total number for each category, and if there is another category that's being added, which is just not the type of the, not only the type of the degree, but also the gender. So then you can use two pie charts, create two pie charts, or you can have the clustered variety or the stacked variety of horizontal bar chart. Remember we talked about when you have one categorical or two categorical variables, best way is pie chart or horizontal chart, and with multiple categorical variables side by side pie chart. But more useful is the horizontal bar chart with stacked or cluster type. So so we'll talk about we'll create each one of those and and look at it. Okay. So let's first talk about the chart, pie chart. So for that, you need to select these cells. All right. This is where the data is. Then go to the Insert tab within the Excel and go to the chart section and select the pie chart right here and select the 2D pie option. And voila, there you go. Right now, you can change the title and say uh, degrees conferred. Okay, I shouldn't have taken that original title, or we can type it in 2009 to 2010 for that year. Okay, and I prefer, okay, so let's talk about that later. Now, then you can move this one. It's at the bottom. It's, oops, not that. I was talking about moving this particular, the legend, which gives information about what these colors represent, right? And you can move it around, play with it, and make it more visible, and there you go. It's right there. Okay. Now, when you're doing things for academic purposes, it's better to use go to Home and select Times New Roman. I'll just type times and space and I'll get Times New Roman. I'll hit enter. Then 12 is the perfect size. Given it's a title, I'm okay with 14. Coming with to here, I'm going to change again times space enter. Then I'll select 12 here, enter. There you go. Again, this is zoomed out. That's why it's looking a little bigger. But if zoomed in, if I zoom out, it's the appropriate size. Okay, and it's a best practice to actually have the source a name and the link to the source when you create a chart. Okay, I'll stop here. This is specific to pie chart. In the next few videos, we'll talk about the horizontal um, bar charts of three regular type and the two other types. So in the next slide, you'll see a very short video on um, creating horizontal bar charts. Check it out. Okay, in this short videos, we'll talk about creating charts, and the first set of charts would be based on this particular data. This particular data is specific to one categorical variable, which is the type of degree, associate degree. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so the associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's, and doctorate, and there's a total number for each category, and if there is another category that's being added, which is just not the type of the, not only the type of the degree, but also the gender. So then you can use two pie charts, create two pie charts, or you can have the clustered variety or the stacked variety of horizontal bar chart. Remember we talked about when you have one categorical or two categorical variables, best way is pie chart or horizontal chart, and with multiple categorical variables side by side pie chart, but more useful is the horizontal bar chart with stacked or cluster type. So so we'll talk about we'll create each one of those and and look at it. Okay. So let's first talk about the chart, pie chart. So for that, you need to select these cells. All right. This is where the data is. Then go to the Insert tab within the Excel and go to the chart section and select the pie chart right here and select the 2D pie option, and voila, there you go. Right now, we can change the title and say uh, degrees conferred. Okay, I shouldn't have taken that original title, or we can type it in 2009 to 2010 for that year. Okay, and I prefer, okay, so let's talk about that later. Now, then you can move this one. It's at the bottom. It's, oops, not that. I was talking about moving this particular, the legend, which gives information about what these colors represent, right? And you can move it around, play with it, and make it more visible, and there you go. It's right there. Okay. Now, when you're doing things for academic purposes, it's better to use go to Home and select Times New Roman. I'll just type Times and space, and I'll get Times New Roman. I'll hit Enter. Then 12 is the perfect size. Given it's a title, I'm okay with 14. Coming with to here, I'm going to change again Times space Enter. Then I'll select 12 here, Enter. There you go. Again, this is zoomed out. That's why it's looking a little bigger. But if zoomed in, if I zoom out, it's the appropriate size. Okay, and it's a best practice to actually have the source a name and the link to the source when you create a chart. Okay, I'll stop here. This is specific to pie chart. In the next few videos, we'll talk about the horizontal um, bar charts of three regular type and the two other types. Okay, so now that you create a horizontal bar chart, now let's see what happens when you have an additional category, the gender here. So type of degree and gender, then you use side by side box. Pie chart is fine, but it's more recommended one is would be a version of the horizontal bar chart, which is either stacked or clustered, and we'll do both in this video. So let's select again. You select also the empty cell. Remember, you need to select all the things that you want within theirs, including male, female, and the other category. Okay, so select this and go to insert, then select a chart. Now, usually horizontal bar charts, usually you see a symbol for it. I don't see it here, it depends on the version. So I'm gonna go to the recommended chart and you should see the horizontal bar chart of two different types, the clustered and the clustered, and stacked and the clustered. I'm going to select the stacked first, and you can see the breakdown um, where this length will be similar to this length and overall, but within that bars you have the proportion that represents the um, gender. Um, then again, you change the title, say degrees conferred, and 2009 to 2010. And then you can have the legends here, the right side. Don't see that here. Okay, there you go. That, there you go. So that's another way. And again, you can change the what do you say? To Times New Roman home, time, space, enter. 14 is fine. Then I'm going to use for this particular axis. I'm going to select these. I'm going to change this axis to times New Roman, enter, and I want it to be 12. 12 it is, and I can also change the axis here and change the color for that. Remember that I've selected all these, and then go back to home and times, enter, then 12. There you go. Okay, so this is the stacked version of it. Now let's create a, what do you say? Let's create the clustered variety of it. Again, you select the same, you click somewhere else, right? Reselect that particular data as points, and then go to insert, and then you're going to select, because you don't have horizontal bar chart, you can use the recommended one and select the cluster now. So you repeat the process, and basically everything we just did. Degrees conferred, um, then 2009 to 2010, then select the things to be Times New Roman and 12. Do the same here, Times New Roman and 12. There you go. And you can move the legend here to right here and make it vertical. So it's clearly visible. And you can also change this to Times New Roman and 12. There you go. Okay. So that's about different versions of the horizontal bar chart. Okay, so there are actually two videos, and both these are related, so that's why I put it together. But these short videos, the first one would be on creating column charts. Remember the vertical column charts we discussed? Yes, and the next short video would be on the line charts, and then the procedure is pretty much same for both. You just select a different option, and everything else is same. So that's where this goes. So in the previous video, we talked about using this particular tab and looked at how to create pie chart when there is one categorical variable, or a horizontal bar chart when there is a one categorical variable. Then we also looked at how to create clustered horizontal and stacked horizontal bars when you have two categorical variables. Now what we'll do in this video is move on to the next tab with GDP information in it. And just look at this. The first column is the date. And if you carefully look at it, this date is divided into quarters. So 2, 3, 4 quarters per year, starting from 2000 till 2013. So what we're going to do now is, and the next column is about the change in GDP, which is a quantitative variable. So we have a quantitative variable here. This is also a quantitative variable, but it's a discrete quantitative variable if you remember. So the time series here has discrete values of quarters for each year. In that particular case, we will use when there is a categorical variable um, with the quantitative change in number for categories, it's vertical columns. Um, then comparing numbers for discrete quantitative variables, again the same answer. The clustered clustered vertical columns, and that's what we will do. Just keep in mind that when this is not quarterly, but instead not in intervals, but it's a continuous series, then we'll use a line chart. So let's first talk about, given it is a discrete intervals of time series, we're gonna use the we're gonna use the vertical chart. So let's see how to create the vertical column charts. So you select these two. Again, this change is represented in the next column, um, right? And the actual GDP is in the change in actual numbers here, but this change is in here for the change in percentage, and that's what we'll do. Okay, so how do? You select these cells, right? Just like we did, and starting with the headers as well. Then you go to insert, and you want the vertical column chart, right? It's right here, vertical column chart. You column chart, click, and what do you say? You can select a stacked vertical column, or because we have only one um, categorical variable or one variable for the x-axis, and there are no other categories. We can just select the regular vertical column charts. Okay, when you click on this, when you create this, you'll see this one, right? And the idea is that the x-axis is labeled here as opposed to at the bottom, so it's confusing. A better way would be to be able to see the charts here as well and the dates at the bottom. So we're going to change that. One way to do that is to kind of select this axis, right? And right click, and let's see, format axis. Where is it? There you go. Then the window opens up, and usually it's already open because I was working on it. Okay, and this, for this particular axis, we want this axis to be at the bottom, right? And if you see the options, if you go to the last option right here, right, the columns option, if you minimize this, these are the axis options, tick marks option, label option. We want the label option. Change the label position to low so that it goes at the bottom. There you go. Okay, now it looks good. So it looks better. Okay. Now what else we want? Well, we want to be able to make it more readable. So we want to know what these numbers are. We want to state what these are. So again, we are adding, what do you say, chart elements to it, right? So let's see how to do that. If you, when you click on the chart that you've created, it automatically takes you to chart design or design. Okay, so you don't need to do anything. So just click on the chart somewhere, not right here or there, just right in general. And at the top, the first option you'll see within the design is the add chart elements. So click on that. We're gonna add the label for the x-axis and the label for the y-axis. So the axis titles. So we click on primary horizontal. So it adds a place to add the title for the x-axis. And if you click on the vertical, primary vertical, it will add a place to add the y-axis. And then you label this. So So the x-axis, you just need to double click in this box and write, let's say quarter, because this is by quarter, right? Um, and the x-axis, so the y-axis title is change in GDP, right? So I'm gonna write change, um, percentage change in GDP over that. Percentage change in GDP. Okay. Then we'll also name this and something like quarterly change in GDP, US 2000 to 2013. Okay, so it looks good. Now, one quick thing is I want this to be what do you say? Same font. So I'm going to change it to Times New Roman and change it to 12. Then change the title as well to the axis titles, both to Times New Roman and 12, and change the title itself to Times New Roman. 14 is fine. And if you want, you can make it better. You can actually change this one also to Times New Roman and leave it to 9, but change it to Times New Roman so it looks uniform. So there you go. Okay, so that's how you create a column chart. So because there are more intervals, that's why the columns are smaller. With fewer intervals, the columns will be more. But when you make it bigger, you can definitely see everything in there. One more thing I would like to add is to have an axis. I like having axis, right? So click on this axis, right? Oops. Okay, there you go. I clicked on y-axis. Now, if this format axis is already there, then you can work on it. If it's not there, then right-click on it, format axis, then this particular window pops up, and we want to add a line, right? So you just go to this paint fill and line option, right? And go to the line option. There, like fill option, line option. Go to the line option and select solid line. So that adds a solid line here. You can look at that. You see that? Now we want to do the same to the x-axis. So I'm going to click here. It probably added it here, but I'm going to do it. Okay. Click here. And again, you're already in there. So add solid line. So it adds a solid line there. So I prefer that. It looks neater with axis having specific lines. Okay, so that's about creating vertical column charts. We do that when you have when you're comparing numbers, quantitative variable, as a function of either categorical variables or as a function of quantitative but discrete quantitative variable where you have time series of quarters, for instance. Okay, so in the next video, we'll look at um, how to do what do you say the varieties of vertical column charts, the stacked and the clustered. Okay, in the previous video, we looked at how to create vertical column charts. And we use vertical column charts when you have numbers, quantitative variables being compared as a function of either categories or discrete quantitative variables, for example, quarterly time series here. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next is, well, if we had another variable to this, categorical variable, then we can create stacked columns, right? Or clustered columns. So you can still have the time series in quarterly, and then you add another layer of categorical variable to it, and another layer can be added as another vertical column next to it if it's clustered, or on top of it if it is stacked. And that's what we'll look at, but we'll use a different data set now. We'll look at the the enrollment data here. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger Okay, so enrollment data, uh, the 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 first row represents information about the year. You can see that. Again, you can think of each year as an interval as opposed to continuous data being collected. We have data for each year, not every day of the year. Okay. Now, so one category is the year, and the other category is the gender, males and females. And what you have this data is the enrollment numbers in millions. The actual enrollment numbers are here, but the enroll numbers in year in millions, excuse me, are right here. So what we'll do now is create stacked and clustered vertical column charts. Remember, we are using vertical column charts because we have uh, interval data or yearly discrete continuous discrete quantity variable and another category. Okay, so what do? As usual, you select this, make sure you have this selected, and then go to insert. And we want vertical columns right here, right? So within the vertical column, let's create a stock chart for this is for stock chart, stock vertical column, and this is for clustered vertical column. So let me create a stacked vertical column first. Okay, you see that? Okay, let's also create the same time, um, what do you say? Another one for clustered. Okay, so I'm gonna go to insert, uh, column chart, but I'm gonna select the clustered one, the first option. Okay, so I have two charts now, and they're pretty much the same. I'm going to put next to each other and try to make some changes to it. Okay, everything looks fine. It's just that it's you don't see the title, so you have to make it more readable. And legends are at the bottom. You can probably move it up and things like those. So let's add to the column stacked vertical column chart the axis elements like we did before. Axis titles horizontal for the x-axis and um, axis title vertical, primary vertical for the y-axis, and we'll repeat the same here. Um, Axis titles primary vertical for y-axis and primary horizontal for the x-axis. So we have all that information in now. Let's make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. Um, okay. So what do you do next? Well, you have to name these, right? So what is x-axis? This is year of enrollment, right? Or you can just write year or year of enrollment. Okay. Well, what's the y-axis? Well, the y-axis is the enrollment in millions, right? And then chart, you can say um, enrollment uh, enrollment in millions, 1970 to 2020. Okay, so it looks good so far. I'm going to move this legend which talks about the other categorical variables categories to specify which color it is. Okay, what color represents what category. Okay, now this looks good. We're going to repeat the same here. So I'm going to just do on this one and you can do the same there. Okay, what do we need? We need to change this, make it all uniform, right? Change it to Times New Roman. Perfect. Change this one to Times New Roman as well. Times New Roman, and I'm also going to change it to 12. Okay, there you go. And select this one and times New Roman, and I'm going to change it to 12. So this looks better, right? Then you can also change this to Times New Roman. You can leave the size to 9 or 10. Um, that's fine as long as it's readable. Um, Times New Roman. You know what? I'm going to change it to 10. I like 10 or 12 or 14. So, you know, this is good. And this, I'm going to change it to 10 as well. So good so far, right? Okay. And this is needs to be changed as well. Times New Roman and 10. Okay. And whatever we just did can be done to the other chart as well. Now I'm going to add the axis. I like the axis. I'm just click on this, right click, um, format axis, right? It will take me there, and this option is selected, and I'm going to select the other option, which is the fill and line option, and click on the solid line, and voila, I have the. And while this is open, you can just click on this one, and it will change to whatever this particular horizontal line is, which is automatic. So I'm going to change it to solid line, and again have a line here. You can see. Okay, so this looks good. This is how create clustered vertical columns or the stacked vertical columns. Okay, I'll stop it here, and you can do the same thing for this one. I don't want to repeat. Okay, so in the previous video we looked at. Okay, so in the previous video we looked at the how to compare numbers, quantity variable, when you have as a function of discrete quantity variable with additional categories added. In that case, you use vertical column charts, either stacked or clustered. And now we'll move on to uh, where the time series data is not discrete intervals. Instead, it's continuous. And for that, we're going to use the weather data. That's right here. I'm going to make it zoom in. Okay, I think it's big enough. Okay, maybe too big. Okay, I think this is good. Okay, now what do you do now? Now, if you look at it, the time here is for a particular day, and you're trying to see the temperature change and the relative humidity change for that particular day for a continuous time period. So for that, let's just create, and for that you use a line chart because it's not discrete, it's continuous quantity variable, and comparing that numbers for those. So you're going to select these two cells and insert, and we want a line chart, right? And the line chart is right here above the pie chart. And you select the 2D option, the first one, and there you go. You see that? The only problem with this is that the axis information here, right? It starts from 66, so you're zooming in only between 66 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and these changes look huge. This may not represent real changes of our experience. So what we can do to change this is click on this axis and change the minimum 66 to 40, okay, which is more real life like to compare and see overall the temperature. So I'm going to right click on this and format axis. Where did it go? No, I'm going to do it again. Right click, format axis, and there you go. Okay, now I want this. So this particular thing is selected. There are bounds option. There is bounds option here. I want minimum to be 40. Okay, and guess what? Then it changes. You see that? Now the change doesn't seem too big. Okay. Now the usual options are what do you do next? Well, you will make the changes. You already know how to make those changes, so I'm gonna not repeat this. But remember, you need to add axis and change to Times New Roman and have a title, and that's it. Now let's look at another version of the line chart where you are you're not just looking at the temperature as a function of a continuous variable of time, but you're also looking at changes in another factor, which is the relative humidity. So in that sense, these two are two different DVs though, but you're comparing it as a time series data for change that is continuous. But the numbers you're comparing are two. You're not comparing these two, but you're comparing temperature and relative in the same chart. So what do you do then? Well, you select both these columns then, like the time column and the temperature and relative humidity column. And you go to insert, and we go to the line chart again, right? And you can just select the same first option you selected earlier, and voila, you see the line. And the y-axis here is 0 to 100 to kind of find a common unit to represent both the changes in humidity and temperature. Okay. Now, what can you do? Well, you can do the things that you've learned before, right? So, what can you do? I don't know, like you can change, you can add the axis first, right? Add um, the axis titles, primary horizontal, axis title, primary vertical. Then what else we got? Then we can move this up. Let's make it a little bigger. Okay, and then let's make this one go up. Perhaps here. That's okay. Then you add the title, time of the day. Okay, then you here uh, temperature slash humidity. We don't know the units because it's a regular, just a quantitative number 0 to 100. Humidity. Okay, so leave it up there and change the title to um, changes in temperature, weather changes. How about that? Weather changes. Right. In a day, maybe, I don't know. Okay. So it looks good so far. And what do you do next? Well, you change it to Times New Roman, right? Okay, we'll make it to 10, and I'll change this to Times New Roman, and change it to 12. I'll change this to Times New Roman 12. Oh, that makes too big. I'm going to leave it to 10. And I'll change this one to 2012. Sorry, uh, Times New Roman 12. And this one Times New Roman 14 is fine. Okay, so this looks much better, and you know what else you need. I need an axis here. It's already selected, so I'm going to just go to this solid line and select this axis, select the solid line, and you know all this, and so that's why I was quick. So this looks much better, right? So that's how you create a line charts when you're comparing numbers as a function of a continuous quantitative variable. Okay, I'll stop it here. In the um, next video, we will probably look at the scatter plots. Okay, remember the scatter plot, QQ plot for the continuous uh, quantity variables. Okay, so the scatter plot, and in the next short video, we'll talk about how to create a scatter plot. Okay, so in the previous video, we looked at the line charts. Now we're going to move on to the scatter plot. So far, we've been looking at uh, primarily when the response variable that you're comparing numbers as a function of either categories, um, then you have column charts, then as a function of uh, interval discrete quantitative variable, in which case we've been using column charts as well. And the moment we have a time series data with a continuous um, thing, then we have moved on to what is called as the line charts, right? Now, what we'll talk about next is what if we have both the x and y axis are continuous variables. Um, and how to chart, what chart to prefer. And we're going to use what is called as a scatter plot, and that's what we'll talk about now. So I'm going to go into the crimes data tab here. I'm going to increase the size, and we're going to create a chart. As you can see, this particular thing has as a function of city. This is first column is about the city. Second column is the property crimes in 2012 for each city, and then the violent crimes in the next column for 2012. And this is then we're gonna know the correlation between these two. So what we're gonna do is select these two columns, right? And as usual, we go to the insert tab, right? And we go to the scatter plot. The scatter plot is right here, dots. Do you see the dots? And you select the um, scatter plot. First one you see, which is the XY scatter plot. So I'm going to select that. And there you go. That's the, well, no, I don't know why I did not select. Something went wrong. Oh, interesting. So I'll do it again. Um, Insert. Uh, okay. So basically, you can see this is the um, property crime, and this is um, the violent crime. I'm going to see, the aim is to see what is the relationship between these two continuous variables. Now, as you can see, the minimum number of violent, this is the property crimes, is not zero, right? It's the minimum is somewhere around 15. So I'm going to change the x-axis to 15, and you know how to do that already, right? So you just need to select this axis, right click, and go to format axis. I'm still trying to find where it is. I'm going to do it again. I'm sorry about that. Uh, uh, there you go, format axis. Okay, and this opens up, and I'm going to change the minimum to say 15,000. Okay, and you can see how it is more meaningful now. Okay, now what we want now is the names of the axis and the usual stuff you already know. And I think this is a chart title. Okay, it's not just the violent crime though. It is it is property and violent crimes 2012. Okay, that looks better. Now we need access. So you know how to do that. Add chart elements, axis titles, primary horizontal for x-axis, then do it again, but select the primary vertical for the y-axis. So we're getting there, right? So um, then what do you see here? You see that there is a linear trend, right? With increase in the property um, crimes, there is also a corresponding increase in the violent crimes. And we need to find one line that represents this. As we discussed in the previous unit, it is the trend line or the regression line. The way to add that is to just click on any of these dots. Okay? You know that each dot represents a city, although we haven't added that information. So each dot represents a city. So what we're doing now is selecting these dots, right? Select on these dots. Oops, I'm going to click outside for a second. Yep, and right click on this. And it says add trend line. Do you see that? I'm going to do it again. Okay, I'm going to selecting on any of these dots, right click and add a trend line. That's it. Sometimes in the older versions, it may give you options, and you can select the usual first option is the big for the linear one. Select the linear one, and this is the trend line, which says that with the increase in property line, there is a corresponding increase in the property crime. There is a corresponding increase in the violent crime, and the observations that are far from this line are the ones that are more deviant, more variable than the usual trend. Now, the other things that you need to do are pretty simple. You already know, so I'm just going to say property, property crime. And this is violent crime. Okay. Then we have the title, everything looks good, and we just need to change the stuff, right? Um, the usual. I'm going to do it quickly. Come on. Okay. Then I'm going to change it to 10. I'll change this one as well to, come on, come on, come on. 10. Then we'll move on to these things. Times New Roman. I want it to be 12. And again here, Times New Roman 12. Okay, I'm going to change this to Times New Roman so it all looks uniform. Okay, so that's the scatter plot, and in the next video, we're going to talk about the box plots or the stock charts. Okay, so remember the stock chart, the stock for stocks, right? The side-by-side box plot basically, and we'll talk about how to create that in the next slide. Okay, in the previous video, we talked about how to create scatter plots. Now we're going to move on to the stock chart or the box plot, specific to stocks though. So we'll use the Google Stock option here or the tab. It's actually from Yahoo Finance. I'm going to zoom in so you can see these numbers. Okay, so you can see that the first column represents the date starting from December 12, then January 13, Feb, and so on and so forth. So this is for a year, and you can kind of see this as interval discrete time data. Uh, then for each month, you can see what's the stock price, the opening stock price, the closing stock price, and the highest value and the lowest value. Um, so one way to do that is to create a stock chart or a box plot. And to do that, what we need to do is, again, each year has four numbers in it, right? The opening and the closing, the high and the low stock values, opening stock value, closing stock value, and in between, what happened is there a high point and a low point. So let's look at that. So to create it, you need to select this data, right? And then you have to go to insert. And you may not see this option like stock chart, but if you look around for this Excel, I just need to click one of these and it has several options. Do you see that stock? So the stock option I want to select is it's not just high and low and close, right? I have opening, high, low, and close as we looked at earlier. So we have opening column, high value, low value, and close value, and that's how the data is. So I'm going to select that, and this is what you'll see. Now, the thing is that the lowest value is close to 600. So we can remove this empty space by editing the what do you say? The axis. So I'm gonna format axis and the minimum here, right? I'm gonna change it to 600 because there is no value below 600. Now it's more easy to see. Do you see that? Now you'll do the usual stuff. I'm not going to talk about that. Chart title, the x-axis, the y-axis, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to talk about that. But just look at these. What it suggests. Well, in um, the January, in the December, the opening price, the inner bars you see here, this is the opening price. This is the closing price, and this is the lowest price for that month, and the top is the highest price for that month. So, for instance, let's look at October the 13th, the opening value is 880 and the closing is 1030. Okay, so October the opening is 880 and the stock closed for that month at 10 something, right? And these points are within that month. How low did it go? So it went lower than 850. Let's see if it's correct. October lower than 850. Yeah, 842. Let's see how high it went. It's 1041. That would be this one. See that? Now that's how you make sense of the um, data in more detail. Now, sometimes you, let's look at some weird ones. Uh, where is the weird one? Let's look at this one. Okay, this is the opening. This is sorry, this is the opening. This is the closing. It fell way below, and there was hardly any increase, right? Um, and here the opening and the closing, a little bit increase, right? It started here, it ended here, but it fell too low, and so on and so forth. And so that's how you create this chart. And I know you know that how to make it more appealing. So I leave it up to you. Thank you. In the next video, we'll talk about the spark lines. Okay, so this is the last one. We're not going to talk about creating graphs. It's more advanced. So we'll talk about spark lines and how to create those using Excel in the next video. Okay, welcome back. In the previous video, we looked at how to create the stock chart. Now we'll move on to creating our last spark lines. So for that, we'll use the medium income data. And within this data, you can see that there are salaries as a function of different categories for each year. For years 1995, 2000, and so on, specific years. There are like 9 years here. And for each, you have, what do you say, the salary for each year, and within that there are other categories, and we will not talk about the other categories and all that. We just want to create this spark lines that represents the trend for each of the smaller categories without knowing more details about it. So to do that, I'm going to actually make it a little smaller so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, because you don't need to see the numbers as such. I just want you to see what I'm doing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll not go with the actual names and the categories, but take the first column for the salary for 1995. Don't select the year. We don't want the header for this. We just select the first value for this entire table of numbers, right? And drag it so that you can select, oops, so you can select all the cells with numbers, okay, starting with the first one till the last one here, okay. Now you need to go to insert button and select it's a newly added one. You can see the option here, spark lines, and select the lines, okay, spark line. And it will now ask you, where do you want these spark lines to be represented? Well, we want them to be here, right? So let's select those. Okay. Then you see that? So that all the spark lines specific to each line would be represented here in this cell, and so on and so forth. So I will click OK, and voila. You see that? I'm going to make it bigger so you can clearly see the overall trend in terms of the spark lines. So this is how you create spark lines, and this is the end of this. We won't create the maps because it you need a different kind of software to do that, and it's beyond this class to talk about that. You have to use some Google services and so on and so forth. Well, thank you very much. I hope you had fun. Okay, so this is the application practice assignment, but it's actually a part of your data assignment. So you can look at the instructions here also. Thank you. Okay, so this is not a practice assignment. The same assignment is actually um, was converted to data assignment 4. So basically, you'll download the Excel sheet charting tool from the book website, this website, and or this link, or the actual Excel link that is attached to the data assignment on Blackboard, and use the data provided on each tab. There are several tabs, like the worksheet tabs, and make a note of why you choose the particular chart type. Again, the details of this assignment and data assignment 4 are in the Blackboard. Okay, have fun.